Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life with Sabine Parzer. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. I'm doing a solo podcast today, which I hope to be doing a few more of in the next coming weeks. And I would like to pick a different topic that's related to holistic dance each time, and hopefully give you some information about these topics. I would like to talk about authentic movement this morning. Authentic movement is a practice that has been a love in my life for the last 28 years. I discovered it when I was at Earth Dance in Massachusetts in 1997 as part of my explorations at the end of my 20s. At the end of my 20s, I was searching and looking for what I would call a more in-depth relationship to dance. I was dancing professionally on stage, in companies, training professionally, getting my bachelor's, also choreographing, spending a lot of time around, technique and composition, and improvisation was an important part of my journey. But not until like my late 20s did I really dive into sort of the full spectrum of improvisation, which also included the practice of contact improvisation. And as part of that, I discovered authentic movement. I did that the first time with Stephen Yoshin, who's a dance therapist who used to live on the premises of Earth Dance. And it really struck me immediately. It was an immediate sort of flash of recognition and deep knowing that this would be a practice for me for a long time. I knew that at that time, and it's proven to be so. It's been a long time that I've been, it's sort of ingrained in who I am. It's not something that I can separate anymore from how I teach or how I dance or how I am in the world. So I am deeply, deeply thankful for the form. Authentic movement is something that has been used in many different formats, and that's also one of the things that I would like to talk about. And I would also like to talk about how I use it in the context of holistic dance. So at the very simple core of it, we have two different roles in authentic movement, which is the mover and the witness. As the mover, I close my eyes. I either start sitting or I step into a circle of other movers, and I let myself be moved. And that sounds way easier than it actually is. The invitation in the mover's role is to listen what is moving me. It is not something that has to be ever perfect. It's not a method. It's a practice. So what that means is very different each time I close my eyes. It can mean that I'm resting on the floor, or I'm playing with my fingers, listening to the sound that they make on the floor. It can mean that I'm shaking, or I'm rolling, or I'm stretching my whole body to make myself feel comfortable. It can mean that I'm activated in my body, or that I do bigger movements. It can mean that I use sound or breathing sounds, or sometimes also something that resembles singing. So the sound is something that we consider to be a part of the movement in authentic movement. And it's always over a certain amount of time that we We set ahead of time, so there is a timekeeper who usually rings a bell at the beginning of the session and then at the end of the session. Oftentimes, as a mover, I can let go of time, or I can let go of what we call chronos, sort of this regulated time or measured time that most of us spend our daily lives in. And there's this invitation to listen to something that we call kairos, that is more of a sense time or an embodied time, something that can feel more intuitive or more subjective, that has more of a dream body quality. But there's many different options for what is possible to be experienced in authentic movement. And I would just like to give a short overview over the practice and its application now. And I highly recommend you come and participate in a workshop where there will be longer introductions and more of a practice to really experience it. So the second aspect of the form is the witness. There's always a witness in a traditional setting. Sometimes there's a one-on-one situation where there's a dyad, so you have a personal witness and one mover, and then you also change the roles. Or there will be a group setting where if I'm holding the session, then I will be the witness for all of the participants at the same time. The witness sits in one place and holds the space. So they do not leave. They do not really change position. It's also a practice of sitting. They are invited to listen to themselves. They have their eyes open and watch. But the watching is a non-judgmental watching. It's has this inclusion of the witness's own inner space. As a witness, I see what's going on in the space. I see bodies moving. I hear sounds. And the reflection that's going on inside of me, or the practice that's going on inside of me, is about how does that resonate inside? How am I feeling? How am I, what kind of somatic response do I have to this movement? How does my imagination become engaged? Do I have images, or do I create internal stories around what am I seeing? We're often using I see, I feel, and in my story to reflect on this later. And those are the questions that I ask myself as a witness. I see movement, and what is it that I'm feeling? And again, it's also not a method. It's not something that's ever done. It's often a practice of just being there and breathing and holding the space. And sometimes I experience a lot as a witness. I experience these rich, intense stories or sensations. And sometimes I'm just there quite calmly and just mainly focused on providing the space. Not always, but often we have transition times. Sometimes there's time for drawing, or there's time for writing after the moving session. Sometimes we just have a little bit of time in silence. People can have a little bit of something to drink, or also if there's nature around, to go outside a little bit, get some fresh air or rest. And then oftentimes we will come together and share about our experiences. The mover always speaks first. Part of the practice is to talk about it in present tense. Again, it's also a practice, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you can, talk about it as if it was happening again. And that is something that is sort of integrative to our body mind. We experience the movements on a different body mind level, and then once language comes in, it helps us to integrate. It helps us to sort of sort out the experiences, and it doesn't have to be immediately, but just giving ourselves time to speak about it often will give us some inkling of what was going on. And I always say sometimes the real integration happens 3 hours later or even a week later, but just having the verbalization of the movement practice is again sort of a repetition or also a practice of, okay, there are words that, or there can be words that are related to this physical movement that I was doing. The witness listens, doesn't ask any questions, is not coaching the mover. It's just, again, present. And afterwards, if the witness has witnessing, also if they have language that they want to share, they ask the mover first, would you like some witnessing? And if the mover says yes, then the witness can speak about their experience. Again, also, if possible, in present tense. Again, I see, I feel, and in my story is often helpful to kind of describe the movements first, to get to the deeper layers of feelings, to not get so lost in the stories or in the interpretations, and to really kind of come to the core of what that experience as a witness was. That's a very rough, very fast overview of the practice. I think what's important to mention is that there are different forms to it. I mentioned that earlier. There's sort of the classical format of a dyad, which is one witness, one mover. But then there's also this possibility of a whole group moving and one person witnessing. There's triads, there are group structures, some of them are called breathing circle or long circles, where you switch back and forth between moving and witnessing in different ways. And there's also a group sharing that's related to that. I would like to talk a little bit about what I call Authentic Movement Plus, which is what I offer in my Holistic Dance Institute. It's, I would say, an expanded or maybe even enriched way of offering authentic movement. I'm a dancer. I'm a choreographer. And for me, having language, having vocabulary to express ourselves in authentic movement is important. So it's important for me to offer participants warm-ups. It's important for me to offer ways of getting into the body in order to prepare ourselves for the authentic movement sessions. And I will do that sometimes through ATMs, awareness through movement exercises from the Feldenkrais method. I learned a lot of those from my training in the integrative and systemische, systemische und integrative Bewegungslehre. It's an extended Feldenkrais method that I trained in. I will sometimes give compositional elements or improvisational elements for people to warm up, to get used to their different body parts, or to relate to the floor, to release their weight into the floor, to connect with their breathing, but also to dance with each other, to have interactions with each other, to feel comfortable in the room, to kind of see who else is in the room. So I feel like a warm-up is helpful to get oriented in the space, to get landed within our own anatomy, with the attention in the body, and then just the physical warm-up also of having our capabilities ready, having our heart rates a little bit raised or having our body tonus a little bit softened to make it easier to enter this state of awareness that we're aiming for in authentic movement. I also often will integrate it afterwards. After the authentic movement sessions, we sometimes have, again, some compositional elements or some playful elements, also from contact improvisation, or we will take one movement from the authentic movement session and elaborate on that with open eyes and with music to kind of create it in a more consciously artistic way. And that often helps to integrate the unconscious material that arises during the authentic movement sessions. Sometimes we will do some body work, and that also helps to settle the nervous system or helps for the unconscious material to kind of continue to flow or continue to emerge also through that cellular information that has been activated. So that's kind of a little bit of the context of authentic movement. Plus, of course, there's way more information about what holistic dance as a whole is, but if I'm focusing on that part of it, I think what's important for me is to mention what authentic movement in the way that I use it in holistic dance, who it is for and what its applications are. I offer holistic dance in a setting where it's dance pedagogy. It's holistic dance pedagogy. It means teaching many different aspects about dance that include some body therapeutic and dance therapeutic elements, but are geared towards people who work what we would call normal neurotic participants. It's kind of hard to find a better word for that. If you have one, please tell me. It basically means that people need to have a stable self. People need to be in a line of investigation where they're curious about their bodies, about their body mind, about their psychology, about their soul, however you word that, where they want to find out more about themselves through moving, through regaining or diving deeper into a relationship with their own bodies. It is a practice that goes deep. It has a depth psychology background that is related to the Jungian depth psychology. So I think that's also important to mention, that there's a whole background and knowledge that you can dive deeper into, and that's sort of the basis for authentic movement. So the individuation process and also the practice of active imagination is deeply related to authentic movement. So again, who is this for? It's for all of us who want to really learn about ourselves, who want to learn about feeling safe in a room while exploring ourselves, possibly also reconnecting to some parts of us that are pre-verbal or even prenatal. Oftentimes we will tap into parts of us that are non-verbal, that are very deeply rooted into our early childhood development. By closing our eyes, we sometimes have this feeling that we're back in the womb, or we're back in an early stage. It doesn't have to be, but it can appear. And it's often a really beautiful way of healing parts of ourselves that are hard to get to through language-based therapies, because it's pre-verbal. It's so early in our development. But again, it has this huge range of healing qualities that are related to each other. It's about being in connection with somebody else, or just simply giving ourselves time for ourselves. How can I be moving with a group of people, and if I have my eyes closed, just purely focus on myself and my own inner sensations and the movements that come from there. From my perspective, what the way I hold this form, who this practice is not for, is people who are in acute crisis, who are acutely in psychiatric diagnosis or in a psychiatric crisis situation. People who are on heavy medications, and I would also say in an acute trauma situation. Now, of course, that's always a fine line, but again, just to delineate also the differentiation between therapy and holistic dance pedagogy, in case of doubt, you please always go to a therapist to check out if you feel stable and if they feel you're stable enough to enter this practice. Because we work with eyes closed, there can be a danger of connecting with a part that is, if the trauma is too recent, can be too much to handle at the moment. And there is a danger of disassociation. If that happens, hopefully the person who's holding the space for you can help you to regain a safe ground underneath your feet, or to also lead you to somebody who can help you, a therapist. But we're trying to avoid that. Yeah, we're trying to avoid that by simply stating who this is for, and that we are always, I'm saying we because this is not just me in holistic dance, but I know also many people who work with authentic movement in a self-exploration in the larger context of healing arts, that we're always our biggest concern is safety, that people feel like they have ground underneath their feet when they're doing the practice. So if you're wanting to participate and you're not sure where you are in terms of your history or your trauma therapy or your personal self-reflection on that, it's always good to talk to the person first, to the teacher, to the therapist, and a skilled therapist will be able to check in with you and will be able to say, you know what, I think this might be a wonderful practice for you once you've settled a little bit more in your therapeutic process or in your self-experience. And somebody might also say, and I've witnessed that many times, that people have had severe trauma or have had also a psychological diagnosis or a psychiatric diagnosis in the past, but they've done so much work on it, and they've have so many strategies to also really integrate and find resources to sometimes really in a safe and contained way to dive into authentic movement, but it definitely needs further conversation, and it definitely needs checking in with your teacher. So having said all of that, I would like to say that there is this big area of healing arts that I am working in with holistic dance. It's also that I would consider that somatic movement education works in, and it's a wonderful, rich way of working with the body, also of course with touch and with playful interactions through contact improvisation, and with authentic movement that can be so healing on so many different levels. I think it is important to differentiate then also to the therapeutic practice of authentic movement. If you are a dance therapist and you've had the training of working with people who've had psychiatric diagnosis or who are in therapy, then you can also use authentic movement, but it's a special approach, and it's super helpful. It's super enriching for somebody who is in the therapeutic process. But I would only recommend that to people who have been trained as a dance therapist in it, or as a psychotherapist with dance therapeutic training in authentic movement. And I think that's really important to differentiate. Now, there's a whole other area of authentic movement that has been used to practice artistic expression. Authentic movement is something that you can use in your artistic research, in your composition, in your choreography. I've done performances with my eyes closed where the line between self-exploration and artistic expression is very fluid. I think it's super powerful to use authentic movement in a professional setting or in an artistic explorative setting. I think it's important to name that. It's important to also, for the artistic practice, to have a safe container for that, because it is deep work. And so as an artistic director, for instance, or as somebody guiding people in artistic research, please also bear in mind that you are connecting with people's inner lives. You are connecting with unconscious material that is super rich for artistic output. But I feel like it still also needs a safe container. So there is this whole area of healing arts, and then there's this whole area of dance therapy or psychotherapeutic use of authentic movement, and then there's also the artistic practice. And so just for the last few minutes, I also want to talk about just about the definition of authentic movement in terms of how Janet Adler used it, because I find it often, it's a little confusing to some people, and I think I would like to clarify that. Janet Adler was the pioneer that named authentic movement what it is. Marian Starks Whitehouse is considered the founder of authentic movement. She called it movement in depth back then. And Janet Adler was the one that really named it authentic movement and then also trained people in it. And for many, many years, she worked with what are the guidelines that I've been working with and many people are working with, which is called authentic movement. I, for instance, have trained with Tina Stromstead, who is a Jungian psychoanalyst and an esteemed dance therapist. And she's trained many of us in the practice of authentic movement, how she also learned it and how it was transmitted to her from Janet Adler. Janet, in her later years, developed something that's called the discipline of authentic movement. I'm not 100% sure, but maybe 10 or 15 years before she passed away, she developed the Circle of Four and what she called the discipline of authentic movement. And there she became more restricted in and more sort of, it became a clear sort of set of principles that she was teaching. And the discipline of authentic movement has only been offered to people who have had a master's in psychology or something on the equivalent level of that education. And so I think oftentimes when people encounter authentic movement and then the discipline of authentic movement, there's a bit of a confusion. Are we still allowed to use authentic movement as an open form? And the answer is yes, we can. And then at the same time, the discipline of authentic movement is something particular to what Janet Adler offered towards the end of her life. And for that, you would have needed a specific training and also a specific certification from the Circle of Four, which are a specific group of people who have trained in the discipline of authentic movement with Janet Adler. You can find more, of course, in the internet. I will provide some links at the end of this video to also get some more information. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any comments or any questions, please leave them. either under the video or write me some emails. I'm happy to answer these questions. Thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure talking about this topic. If you would like to know more about holistic dance and the Holistic Dance Institute, please visit us at our website www.holistic-dance.at. Holistic dance is an invitation to transformation through dance, movement, and touch. It was founded by me, Sabine Parzer, in 2010. It is a mix of different methods, a dynamic cross-method approach from dance pedagogical, dance and body therapeutic, systemic, and holistic methods. We offer authentic movement, integrative contact improvisation, somatics and applied anatomy, improvisation, ecosomatics, and many more elements. I offer holistic dance workshops, I offer single sessions, I offer teachers trainings, embodiment trainings, advanced teachers tracks, year groups, and retreats. I would be very happy to see you at one of our events. And if you have any questions, please write me an email.